Thanks to Tunisia. Thanks to what you are doing. Thanks to Africa.
8 years after France sent troops to Mali.
France says it is seeking exit strategy from Mali after 8 years of Mali campaign since French troops were sent to Mali to prevent jihadists from overturning the country. 5 more French soldiers have been killed by roadside bombs in Mali over the past 10 days, bringing to 50 the number of French troops killed across Sahel since France launched the campaign to clear northern Mali of jihadists in 2013. The deaths claimed by a group linked to Al-Qaeda coincided with the massacre across the border in western Niger, where unidentified gunmen killed around 100 villagers in one of the region's worst atrocities. These deaths and disputed claims Tuesday from villagers in central Mali that took up to 20 wedding guests were killed equally in an airstrike have clouded recent successes chalked up by France's 5,100-member counter-terrorism force and its African partners. However, pundits still question the role of France in the Sahel region. In mid-January 2020, French flags were burnt on the streets of Bamako, Mali, to repudiate the presence of France troops. The country is faced with humanitarian crises as violence spirals since France first intervened in 2013, supposedly to fight the rise of Islamic terrorist groups in the country. What will be the outcome of if France has to exit Mali? Stay with us. This is Views on the Continent.
Thanks to Tunisia. Thanks for what you are doing. Thanks to Africa.
Hello, thanks for taking a rendezvous with us again this day on your Pan African Television Afrique Media, where we're discussing pertinent issues around the continent. Today's edition of the program will focus on Mali, where France is seeking an exit strategy since its launch of its operation in the country since 2013. Earlier in 2020, there were protests against the presence of France in the country and the troops equal in the country. At the moment, France has more than 5,000 troops stationed in the country, but then we still find atrocities being committed. Number of deaths keep increasing, and just this week, 5 more French soldiers were killed in a roadside bomb attack, bringing to 50 the total number of French troops who've died in Mali as a result of the continuous insurgency in the country. We're discussing that today. What will it mean if France has to leave Mali? That's a big question we are debating on this day on the program. Verifying, wanting to know equally from you what you think regarding the presence of France in the country. Pundits still question the reason why France is in Mali and atrocities are still being committed. This is Views on the Continent. We shall be expecting to hear from you when we shall open our lines for you to call us and send in your contributions. Those of you watching us live on Facebook, we shall appreciate your comments. We shall read them here if we have time. And
I want to believe it's just an opportunity that I've been given today again to air my views concerning the situation that is happening presently in Mali since back 2013, as we remember. I believe that, like many Pan-Africanists believe, that the time for military expedition to Africa has passed, and the main reason why most of these guys interfere in African affairs is not actually to solve the problems, but basically to
Since jihadist attacks, which have hijacked the country and the Sahel region over the years. However, there is no victory in sight, even with the presence of French troops. Mali and the Sahel region seem to have succumbed to the unrelenting attacks from jihadis. The region remains fragile and unsafe. French soldiers have equally been trapped in the counter-terrorism war. First, it was high time France makes a U-turn on the troops' continual stay in the embattled region. 5 French soldiers were recently killed by roadside bombs in Mali, bringing to 50 the number of troops killed across the Sahel since France launched a counter-terrorism campaign to rescue northern Mali from jihadists in January 2013. While France, through its defense minister, is gearing towards recalling its 600 additional soldiers it deployed in the Sahel last year, the ambiguity is if this withdrawal heralds an end to France's mission in Mali and the Sahel region in general. The latest development takes everyone aback as crisis in the Sahel region was seemingly France's forever war. Would France's exit bring a halt to the jihadist attacks? What needs to be done to mitigate the series of attacks on Mali and the Sahel region? For how long will the war drag on? Who holds the solution to the security crisis in the region? All these are some of the questions which ringleaders in the Sahel region need to answer, as peace and stability remain prerequisite for growth and development.
Thanks very much, Clarice Widowen, for that report. France has maintained a semi-colonial leadership to much of West Africa for hundreds of years. It's no coincidence that these 5 countries are the poorest in Africa. We're looking at the situation in Mali at the moment and the interference of France, or the presence of France in the country since 2013. We continue to analyze that. Now, before we had that report, we were already analyzing on the presence of France, and in January, mid-January, protests in Bamako were explicit anti-imperialist, specifically denouncing French military presence in the region. The French-led operation, which began in 2013, that's mid-January 2020. There was this protest in Mali against the presence of French troops.
Yes, all of us, we can remember watching images of French flags being burned in Bamako. That was as a result of the fact that Malians know already that the presence of France in their country is proof of the fact that they are still a colony to the French people. France, from every indication back in the 1960s, Mali had always wanted to stay out of the hands of the French people. I remember the founding president of the pioneer president, use that word, of Mali, actually refused signing the French Accord, which they wanted all French colonies to sign before they gave them independence. When he refused to sign, France had to use a terrible method in order to impose themselves back in France. Back in Mali, I beg your pardon. You see, Mali is one of those nations that is rich in gold when it comes to those West African nations.
Yeah.
And the presence of France in that particular nation is practically not for the good of the Malians. And like you just mentioned, you can look and see the situation in which this nation is facing. It remains one of the poorest.
Five of them being the poorest.
Yes, remains one of the poorest in West Africa. Why? Because France is there as in fact, is a colonial master. Look at Burkina Faso. You go back, look at another nation like Togo. Just look at those Guinea-Bissau and others. When you come, I'm even counting Guinea. Guinea is not really involved. The most
Mauritania, Niger.
Mauritania, you have Niger, you have Chad, all those countries going now, even coming to Cameroon. These are nations that France had for long held and never wanted to release. We are just so unfortunate that we do not have persons who could actually fight for our freedom, because the freedom of a people is not given, like he said, it is taken. Most of those who went in and asked France for freedom never had the courage enough to face France. And today we are the poorest among the Eastern Western African nations. In fact, one of the most poorest. Because France has done everything possible not to see it develop, but to see it underdeveloped, so that the people of Mali and the people of the rest of Africa could remain dependent on them. And that is a situation that I don't know why it is not already seen by most of these nations who claim that they are fighting against human rights, why they have not yet seen it as a human right abuse. If a nation rises up and stays over the others, claiming that because you are colonial masters, they need to pay a colonial tax to you every year, that is terrible. So France is supposed to have been considered as one of the most terrorist nations on earth, because it is actually terrorizing African nations. 14 African nations are under terrorism from France. And they claim always that they are in Africa to fight terrorism. Like the situation of Mali. They claim that they entered into Mali when Hollande actually launched the anti-terrorist, counter-terrorist attack that he brought his soldiers into Mali. He was coming to stop a terrorist situation. But there is more terror today, 8 years after, in Mali than there had ever been before. The question is, what is the presence of France in Mali?
With more than 5,000 troops.
We have over 5,000 troops. And for 8 good years, there is terrorism. For example, of recent, by the end of last year, we had a major crisis that happened as a result of the coup d'etat. How can France be in Mali to protect the interests of Malians, and there is a coup d'etat? That's to already make you understand their presence in Mali is not for the good of Malians. It is to protect their interests in Mali. Because the gold mines are found around the northern section of Mali and the eastern section, they made sure they gain access to that particular area to protect it for their good. Because if the rebel forces took over that area and actually lay position on the gold, France would have lost. But you know what? France is in the north, and there is when we are talking about these terrorist attacks that are taking place, they are happening. Those guys are in the north, and France is in the north with over 5,000 soldiers, but they are not facing the people they went to face. They are protecting a particular area where there is gold. Their interest is that area, not the entire north. And so, if you look at it, it will prove to you that they have already negotiated with the terrorists, as they claim. They have negotiated with the so-called terrorists so as to keep that particular position and let the terrorists do whatever they can do.
The machineries, look at the intelligence and everything. They have sophisticated materials and weapons to outsmart the terrorists, but yet we still have attacks on a daily basis.
That is just the situation, Mr. Bidwell. If you look at it, the intent, as I said earlier, is not to safeguard the lives of Malians. It's not to protect Malians. It's to protect their interests, which is what they can get, the raw materials. And apart from that, Mr. Bidwell, you look at something. When you look at what is happening there, you start asking this question: why should France persist for years when in actual sense their military chiefs had indicated that there is no terrorism threat that can leave from the Sahel region to attack France? There is no military threat.
Exactly.
You can't have any direct military threat from the Sahel region to France. So why should they concentrate their efforts being there? That is to tell you there is something different they are looking for. So when we speak and say France is a terrorist nation, some people get to feel like we are just talking against France. France is a terrorist nation. It's a nation that is terrorizing Africa. It has been keeping African nations under this situation for long. And I think it is time for France to leave Africa. It is time. So the idea of they are contemplating to withdraw from France, from Mali, is not because they want to really get out. Those soldiers that died, their parents are beginning to talk. French citizens are beginning to talk. And so they are now thinking, okay, maybe we should withdraw. But you know what? They are going to withdraw, but they are still going to maintain a military might in that particular area. Why? They are going to be using the G5. They'll use the G5 to stay there. I mean, for the soldiers that are coming from Chad, the soldiers that are coming from Niger, the soldiers that are coming from Burkina Faso, they are all going to be there to fight for the interests of France, because France is going to be controlling and telling them what to do. So they want to withdraw their citizens, but not African citizens, from being in that particular area. So those are some of the things that the world needs to know. France is a terrorist nation. A terrorist nation. It is terrorizing Africa.
All right, you just made mention that maybe France at the moment has achieved its purpose in Mali, and taking into consideration as well the questioning of from the families whose loved ones have died as a result of the situation in Mali now. Could we equally attribute it to the fact that Mali is now under the rule of the military junta? How do you think this is playing along with whatever is up at the moment, France seeking an exit strategy?
If I may ask you a question, how did the military junta finally take over Mali when France was present? That's to make you understand it seems to be something that is cooked from behind. So I don't really believe in that. So my view concerning this issue is just the fact that at present the French people are actually on the neck of the government concerning the kids that died in Mali and other soldiers. About 50 of them for the past 8 years have died in Mali. And you see, they are not counting the Africans that died long. They're counting the French persons, soldiers that died there. And so with that, there is pressure that is coming from the French citizens to withdraw their soldiers, because it is a useless war. They are stuck in that war and finding it difficult to release themselves because they have something to get. I said maybe they have achieved their goal simply because they have been able to stockpile a lot of gold for themselves. And maybe at the present, they also are thinking that, okay, maybe we should allow it like this and gradually begin to come back for this. But from every indication, the most important reason why they want to withdraw is because of the pressure that is coming from the French citizens on the government. Not necessarily because they think that their interest has already been achieved in Mali.
Okay.
If you give France the opportunity to come to Africa, they will relocate all Africans and take over Africa. If you give them the opportunity, they will want to come and take all over Africa as theirs. Because if you see during the period, if you look at the period of colonization, when they discovered how rich this Africa was, look at what they did. They developed a strategy of leadership called assimilation, where they make the African people to believe that they are French people, so that they can make the African man to not have interest in the African soil. Most Africans in a place like Mali, in a place like Burkina Faso, in a place like Chad, Central African Republic, will want to be French citizens and not Africans, because they were sold that idea that they will be better French citizens, though it is better for them to be French citizens than being Africans. And the main reason for this is simply because France wants to gain all what is in the subsoil, what is under the ground in Africa, for their own selfish greed.
Benefits,
So it is greed that has kept France in Africa. It is greed that is causing young French citizens to be dying in Africa, but they still do not want to leave.
Okay.
And not to wish death for anybody, it would have been better that almost all the soldiers they brought should be killed, so that they should see that military, they can no more win these military expeditions that they are taking into Africa. We know that they have been using their military for long as a means to intimidate Africa, and also as a means to loot Africa dry. But as I said, not to wish death for anybody. If there was a possibility, all those soldiers that have been imported into Africa would have been killed, so that they should learn a very serious lesson.
All right. Just to note that we expect to know from you what you think. We're definitely going to open the lines for you to call and share with us your thoughts and your opinions. What do you think about the presence of France in Sahel, and what will happen if France has to leave Mali and the Sahel region? It should be noted that before France intervened in Mali at the time, there was a turmoil as a result of the Tuareg rebellion in the north, which demanded independence for the region of Azawad. The Tuareg are an ancient tribe of the Sahel who have struggled to gain independence since at least 1916. As a result of the crisis, Mali's military ousted then President Amadou Touamani Touare and suspended the Malian constitution for 2 months. Subsequently, jihadist groups took advantage of the weakening of the Tuareg military groups to expand their influence in the region, and France intervened to protect its interests. Now, this is how France managed to gain its way into the country. Now, when you look at this situation, there was a turmoil in Mali at the time before France stepping in. What will happen if France has to leave Mali at this moment? Its interest was to protect the country from being overturned by terrorist group.
The interest of France was never to actually protect the terrorists from taking over Mali.
At the moment, there
was to protect their interest from being taken over. And so if they leave, there is no problem that is going to happen. Africans know how to take care of themselves. It is not France now that is going to protect Africa from being Africans.
Now, how is the presence of France trying to protect its interests? How has it contributed positively or negatively in the situation we have now in Mali, which has continued to deteriorate?
Good. If you ask me of the negative impact, I'm going to outline some. Some of the reasons why there is a lot of poverty today in Mali is because of the presence of France in Mali. Malians are suffering because France is present. What was supposed to be used for the benefit of the French people, of the Malian people, is being transported to France through military planes. And the Malians are there suffering. The jobs that were supposed to be used, it was supposed to be created through the wealth that is being exploited by the French people, are not being created because the money is not there. And worst of it, they are still paying colonial taxes to France. And apart from that, when you look at the situation, this situation where rebels are struggling to, they are rising up, is simply because of the poverty situation that was generated by the French presence. It's not today. We are not talking 8 years ago. We are talking of 2 centuries today that the French have been present there. Let's use the word from the year 1884, since the day that they decided to come into Africa and they sat in the Berlin Conference and decided to come over and take Africa. From that day to today, forget the slave trade period, to today, the presence of France in Mali is a reason why Malians are struggling to fight against themselves. They are the same reasons why we have rebel forces all over the world. They are the same reason why we keep on fighting against ourselves, because they have sown bad seeds in our minds. They have sown negative ideologies in our mind. They have brainwashed a lot of Africans to get to believe that the African man is the African man's enemy. We are not our own enemies. We are people who love living in a community. We love living for one another, not against one another. But because of this individualism that has been introduced by these imperialist governments from the West, we are now finding ourselves in a situation where we stand to pick guns and fight one against another. It is not the culture of an African man to kill. It was easy for the African man to exile the rebels, to exile the criminal, but not to see their blood shedded. But today it is easy because their presence have actually made us to believe that if we are going to succeed, then survival of the fittest is the only means out. That's wrong economic theory that has been implanted in our brains and our minds. So if you see the situation in Mali today, it is not a situation that started today. The division in Mali today did not start today. It is a situation that the French people instituted. And so the division had been instituted. You don't expect the people of the north who are more of Arab, they are more Arabs in their way of thinking.
Yeah.
And the people of the south who have a different way of thinking to practically live together. But why all this? It is because of the various ideologies that they have been in fact that have been inculcated into their minds. So Mr. Luis, I would say the presence of France in Africa in general, not only Mali, is having a very negative toll on Africans. Just look at nations that the British colonized. There is a little difference with the way
5,000 French troops have been in Mali since 2013 to fight against terrorism in the country, where we still find atrocities being committed left and right, with recent death being 5 for French soldiers in the northern Mali. And now what will mean if France has to leave the country Mali and the Sahel region, as France is seeking exit strategy. Now, Professor Mark, in January, during demonstrations, a demonstrator pointed out the complicity between Paris and the active Islamic or ethnic militias in Mali. Despite the massive presence of the world's largest army, terrorist groups continue to operate and are even becoming stronger. Therefore, we must be very careful with this nighttime arsonist, and suddenly become firefighters are down. This is the comment that was quoted from one of the protesters during the 13th demonstration in the Mali
2020.
Yeah, this is just to add to what we're saying, that certainly France is working side by side with terrorists.
What will you tell me that when the opposition rose up and was asking for the president to cede power, to resign, and the pressure got increased, the French soldiers did nothing to protect the French president. But those in the north who had been asking for a secession of the nation, and France is by them, because the French soldiers are in the north, and yet nothing has happened with them. That should tell you there's a complacency. There is a kind of negotiation that has taken place.
Yeah.
And the French people prefer to divide Mali. They prefer to divide Mali into two, so that the Sahel region should become a nation on its own. But that is one of the reasons why France fell apart with the former president, because he was already proven to be against the French people. That's why it was easy for him to be removed from power through a coup d'etat. When you see all this, the question you should be asking yourself is, why should France encourage secession in Mali, while at the same time in other nations it is fighting against it? It's because those who were leading the leadership of Mali at that particular moment was against France.
Okay.
And so France does not want any rebel, because most of our leaders have become their puppets, where they control and determine the way they do things. But look at it. If Africa will make a difference, then it is time for most of these leaders to stand against France and make France to know that this is Africa.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, the French people should tell the French government that military expeditions into Africa for the looting of Africa will no more work. Because also we are raising our own soldiers. And it will be just normal that soldiers who are foreign to our land should not have authority in our land. When they come here and want to fight against us, it will be just one destination. They are doomed.
Okay.
That time for military expeditions to Africa should stop now. It's no more the time.
All right. Professor Mark, thank you very much. We'll come back to you, but just then let's get your opinions. Those of you watching us, we would like to hear from you. Like we told you, we would like to read your comments equally on Facebook. If you have them, just drop your comments on Facebook Live page. We shall read them here on the program. Views on the continent. Focus is France and its seeking of exit strategy from Mali. Stay with us. We have a call online. Welcome to the program. Let's get your opinion. This is Views on the Continent. Let's hear you.
Hello, Bill. Good afternoon, lovers of African media. This is Ngoe Masse from Douala, Cameroon. Frankly speaking, the presence of French troops in the Sahel region is bringing more harm than good in that particular region. Because no matter their presence, if an atrocity wants to occur, it will still occur. Look at the number of years that they have been there since 2013. What have they done to come out or to quench the power or whatsoever that is happening in that particular region? People are being killed. If people are there, if gunmen are able to kill about 100 villagers just in a trickle of time, then I don't see the presence of them still being there. These are people who are sponsoring. Most of these people, they are the ones who are instead sponsoring this particular group of terrorists, and they will come behind and they will be claiming as if they want to help or they want to support. Meanwhile, they know why those people are still there. But to me, I don't really understand what is happening in Africa these days. Africa is becoming more of a war zone than a peaceful area that we have been enjoying from time immemorial. Africa is becoming more of a war zone because I don't know. Frankly speaking, guns can never be a solution to any problem. Gun will instead increase the fire of a fire in a particular place. If there is a problem or there is a group of people who are crying for a particular problem that is affecting them, why not call them? You dialogue with them rather than you thinking that you can bring in troops, you can bring in a war or the people to fight and they will quench them. It can never solve the issue. So the only thing that I can advise now is that the French troops should leave that particular Sahel. The Malians alone, they are able to fight these people and they will quench. If they weren't there, maybe the problem could have quenched by now. But since they are still there, they continue to be there. That is why people keep on dying every day because of all these people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nguyen Maxey. Thanks for your contribution. And just from what he said Africa is becoming more of a war zone at a time when Africa is equally aiming at silencing the guns. We're still finding more of such coming up. Are we heading to any positive direction? What do you think? Where are we heading to?
You see, 2020 was the African Union year of silencing of the guns.
Yeah.
Where we had more guns that in 2020, implying that our enemies do not like our progress. And as I said, France is one of the greatest enemies of Africa than a friend. And that is the reason why, even with the presence of France in most of our African nations, there's more war than there's peace. For example, in Central Africa, remember, there's nothing there like peace. France's presence there. When you go to a place like Mali, they came in the name of they were struggling to stop the terrorist forces, as they call it, the jihadist bodies.
Not done any good to the country.
But their presence there created more disorder than order. And so it is, but just normal what the young man was saying, that the presence of France in Africa is one of the reasons why Africa is getting more deteriorated and falling into more war than in living in a state of peace. Just look at the situation in Cameroon. Just 1 year after they entered into Mali, they organized another issue called Boko Haram. Who is sponsoring Boko Haram?
Boko Haram started as with a vision to create
a whatsoever they call Islamic State.
But at the moment, there's no direction. They are just causing havoc.
To create an Islamic State in the northern section of Nigeria. How did Cameroon get involved? That's to tell you how France manipulates. Because France is the sponsor of that particular body. So we have been fighting a war in Cameroon not because we were supposed to be fighting a war. Cameroon was a very peaceful nation, as you can remember, under President Paul Biya. One thing I'll tell you that a lot of people do not see about this president is that for the time being, he has been one of those who has been doing everything possible to stay cool out of the arms of France. And anytime you struggle to do that, you are behaving as if you want to leave their yoke. You want to come out of that bondage in which they had placed you under. They use another means to provoke you to settle back with them. And Boko Haram in northern Cameroon was one of those. Presently, I can even conclude that even the situation in northwest and southwest is one of those.
Someone just wrote on the Facebook page, says Cham Nguai said France is not coming to solve the problems in the to stop the war in southern Cameroon because Paul Biya is under their control. And just note here that the United States recently accused France for playing double standards in the crisis in the two English-speaking regions.
France has over 500 companies in Cameroon, which means they should be protecting their interests here. But the question is, why is it that they are not doing anything? Why are they doing nothing? It is not to say that they are complice with the president or with the government. No, they are seeing how they are losing completely. In fact, what was in their care, in their keeping, is going off, and they are strategizing means to make sure that they get it back, and that is by creating the war. So they are the creators of the war, so you do not expect them to come in to intervene. From Boko Haram to that in the northwest and the southwest. It is true the people of the northwest and southwest in Cameroon, they have a genuine reason for actually revendicating.
They many believe they cried the genuine reason has been infiltrated.
But that's why I'm saying that they have a genuine reason, but what we have presently is not the problem of the Anglophones and Francophones. It's not an Anglophone-Francophone problem. And what the people revendicated has been shifted. Now armed forces have taken over, not only armed forces, individuals who are sponsoring it. And I don't want to say that those who are sponsoring it are our brothers in Europe and in America, but I always believe that France is behind this kind of strings. They are the ones playing those strings behind to see that Cameroon and other African nations remain unstable so that they can keep control.
All right. Let's have this other comment from you, Racine SY. You say what Africans must do is to unite and fight against France or the French government, not only in Mali but in all other African countries. Can this be possible? Prof, can we talking about this comment from Racine SY? Say what Africans must do is to be united and fight against the French government, and not only in Mali but also in other African countries. How possible is this unity?
The unity of Africans is imperative for their development. if Africa is going to develop, it might not be a unity of, okay, for example, there's this idea of United Africa, say United States of Africa. It is not necessarily bringing all these nations as one. But I believe that there could be a kind of conglomerate, or let me use the word, a confederation, like we have in Europe today, where we call the European Union.
Yeah,
is a confederation. And if Africa is supposed to rise up, we must get to a place also where we establish a military force. Africa needs to have one military force. So when we talk of the African Union is not supposed to be just a toothless bulldog like it is, without any governing real powers. I think that if Africa needs to prevail and excel, become economically strong, there is need for the African nations to do one thing. And what is that one thing? Unite. You're not uniting only in calling themselves, as we have right now, we say African Union. The African Union, which is still controlled by the European Union, because the European Union has a permanency in the African Union, which is not normal. We are still controlled. So we need to have a definite distinction between Europeans and Africans. And we are able to define our own policies and say what we want. That gives us the strength to face the war as a people. If we have an African Union that has political power, that has autonomy economically over the African states. For example, they determine the currency that is used in Africa. They determine we have a military force which is donated by every military, not like the one we have right now. I'm talking of a force that, if in case there is a situation, the leading president of that particular for that year has the power to mandate for an attack or to solve a problem. If that be the situation where most of our leaders can give in part of their political will to this ruling body in the African Union, then we will have a united force that can be able to face the war, and that will cause the African nations to develop. So apart from that unity, Africa will remain divided, and as long as Africa remains divided, we will never prevail. These people will keep on manipulating us. They'll keep on holding us in one position. They'll keep on telling us. You see, just to take a state, let me make a statement. When you look at the situation of Africa today, how do you expect that when it comes to trade, for example, small Djibouti wants to trade with China? Who is going to determine the policies of that trade? China, because China is a giant. Djibouti is just a small nation. What about Central African Republic? It's a 4-point-something million people, and you want to say they are in bilateral trade with United States? Is that possible with France? Because when it comes to Europe, if you see France coming to tell you that they want to trade with you, the entire European Union that is trading with you, because they are using euro. So in that sense, Africans are missing. So we need to get to a place where we build ourselves together. We come together, make a force that we can be able to face the world. We should be able to be equals on the table, not puppets. We should not be toys. They should not use us as if we are rats. We are not second-class citizens. Africans are not second-class citizens. We should be able to sit on the table and talk from the table rather than sit under the table and eat crumbs.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Now let's possibly get the last reaction from you watching us. We have a call online. Welcome to the program, your live on views on the continent. Let's get your opinion, please.
Hello, Luis. Hello, viewers and lovers of Afrique Media. This is Photo Brian calling from Nigeria. Yeah, Luis, you see, France is a paramount to African countries, or French African countries. And I repeat it, you see, their presence in our countries make no difference. I don't know exactly what they are doing with their military bases in Africa, whereas their presence is equal to their absence. I just want to leave Mali a bit and take you to Chad, where Boko Haram crossed them one time like that and bombed a base, a place close to N'Djamena. And France were there. How did the Boko Haram cross, whereas they are there to stop the Islamic group? You see, a whole village is being slaughtered, 100 people slaughtered in a village, and France is there. What is their use? I think there is something around these African countries that France wants to take. They should stop fooling the people that they are protecting, that they want to use their military to protect them, whereas they are there stealing our minerals, stealing our resources, taking them to France. I saw in a cut on the other day where the French militaries were busy digging gold in one of these areas around the Sahel. In the Sahel area, they were digging gold and exporting it. Nobody talks. I saw another place around the Congo where there is an airport in the forest, where they land and carry boxer and everything and disappear with it. Their presence is equal to their absence. In fact, let the Malians get up and strike against the French country, the French armies. They are there to destroy that country. They are there to cause more chaos to that country. I don't see their need or their use in that country. Let them go. Any other country in Africa should let France go. They are the one causing confusion in Africa, in the French countries. See what is happening in Cote d'Ivoire. They are responsible. Even what is happening in Cameroon, they are responsible. Let them pack and leave Africa. They have their own country. Let them go to their country. We don't need them here to help us with military whatsoever. We don't need them. Let them go. Let the Malians get up, rise, and strike against the existence of France in their countries. This is totally unacceptable. They are there and every day is good. Let them kill all of those French armies. They are doing more harm than good to African nations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your reaction. And Ethiopia, we very much expect that we're pleased to have had you on the program as well. Thank you, Dr. Brian from Nigeria. Maybe a last word from you, Professor Mark, before we wrap up this edition of the program, focusing on the fact that France is looking for exit strategy from Mali.
The withdrawal of the French soldiers, not only from Mali, but from all of Africa, as well as every other European soldier in Africa, is something that is going to be of the benefit of Africans. Mm-hmm. So the faster they do it, the better.
To help Africa be at peace with
give
itself.
Africa the opportunity to become not only they say they independent as they claim it, they should become able. They should be able to take charge of their own destiny.
Okay.
We do not believe that it is the French military, the Russian military, the British military, the American military in Africa that will serve and protect Africans, will protect Africans.
Yeah.
We can protect ourselves. Before the Europeans ever came, we had been soldiers and warriors before. Mm-hmm. So we know how to take care of ourselves.
Maybe empower us with the weapons.
We don't need their weapons. We don't need their weapons. We can create ours. Mm-hmm. You see, this is the thing that we have made a mistake for a long period of time. For the past years that we have been together with them, before they came to Africa, was there not technology in Africa? There was technology in Africa. The technology has been hampered from developing. Let them give way and see whether Africa will not develop.
Okay.
Let them go. Pack your things and leave Africa, not only to the French soldiers, but to the European soldiers and American soldiers and American everything that is in Africa. We are not saying that we are not going to work in collaboration. Mm-hmm. Working in collaboration is different from you imposing on a people. Okay. You don't impose yourself. One of the clauses in that colonial pact says that the French soldiers, French people, at any moment where they think that there is a threat to their interest, in Africa, they intervene even without the consent of the government of that nation. That's to tell you how.
That's why we saw 20 people at the marriage ceremony killed recently from an airstrike by France.
That's the evil. And that's to make you understand how they underlook us.
Okay.
That's to make you feel that these people don't have respect for Africans. And so as long as they don't have respect for Africans, we can't believe that they have any good for Africans. Okay. So let them go out of Africa. If not, it is just going to be normal that at the end of the day, their deaths are going to increase in Africa.
All right. All right, Professor Akumbo, Pan-Africanist and political analyst. Thanks for being on the program today.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure, and I wish to always be there when called for.
Sure. Thank you very much for watching. We keep striving till we have that Africa at peace with itself. This is your Pan-African television, Afrique Media. Thanks for being there. Thanks for your calls and your contribution. Those of you left us messages on Facebook, we very much appreciate. Until we meet again tomorrow, stay tuned for more programs like yours on Afrique Media. Bye-bye.